Welcome to English with Zenko Master. Get ready to learn something new today.
I was standing on the train platform when the wind blew my hood off. It was cold that morning, and the gray sky looked heavy. I tried to pull my coat tighter, but it didn't help much. Around me, people were moving quickly, drinking coffee and checking their phones. I stood still. I wasn't going anywhere important. I just didn't want to stay at home again. I watched the train arrive. The doors opened and people pushed inside. I walked in slowly and sat near the window. I picked the same seat every day because no one liked to sit near the back. I looked outside as the city passed by. Buildings, cars, and lights moved fast, but my life felt like it had stopped. It had been 6 months since I lost my job. Before that, I worked at a small office. It wasn't exciting, but I had a routine. I got up, dressed nicely, took the train, and talked to people. I used to feel like I was part of something. Then the company made cuts. I was one of the people they let go. They said it wasn't personal, but it felt personal to me. After that, things started to fall apart. My savings were small, so I had to leave my apartment. I moved into a small room on the edge of the city. It had one window, a bed, and a desk. The walls were thin, and I could hear my neighbors arguing at night. I didn't know anyone there. No one smiled in the hallway. No one asked how I was doing. In the beginning, I tried to stay strong. I woke up early, made tea, and looked for jobs online. But after a few weeks, I stopped. The silence in my room became louder. I ate less. I spoke less. Some days, I didn't speak at all. I went outside only to take the train and sit in the city library. I sat there for hours, pretending to read. The library was warm and quiet. I always sat at the same table. No one looked at me, and I liked that. I watched other people and made up stories in my head. There was a woman with red glasses who read novels every afternoon. There was a man in his 60s who always brought a sandwich. There was a girl who cried quietly while typing. I felt close to them in a strange way, though we never spoke. One afternoon, I looked at my reflection in the library window. My face looked tired. My eyes were empty. I touched my cheek and felt a tear. I didn't even notice I was crying. I wiped it away quickly, afraid someone might see. But of course, no one did. No one ever did. When I went back to my room that night, I sat on the floor. The light from the hallway came through the bottom of the door. I watched it move slowly as people walked past. I felt like a ghost. I wasn't part of anything anymore. Not a job, not a home, not a group of friends. Even my family was far away. They had their own lives. We talked less and less. I didn't want to worry them. I didn't want to explain how empty I felt. Every day became the same. I took the train, sat in the library, and went back. I avoided shops and cafes. I didn't want to see happy people. I didn't want to hear laughter. It reminded me of what I had lost. I used to laugh too. I used to meet friends after work, talk about TV shows, make dinner with someone I loved. His name was Simon. We lived together for 3 years. He was kind, funny, and smart, but he slowly changed. He stopped asking how I felt. He stayed out late. One night, he told me he was moving out. He said he didn't feel the same anymore. He wanted something new. I didn't cry in front of him, but after he left, I didn't stop crying for days. I think that's when my heart started to close. I didn't want to feel that pain again. I didn't want to trust anyone. It was easier to be alone. It was safer. But safe also felt cold, and the cold didn't leave, even when the sun came out. One morning at the library, I noticed a small book left on my table. It had no cover. Inside, someone had written words in pencil. The writing was simple. "Are you okay?" was the first line. I looked around, but no one was looking at me. I read the next page. "I come here every day. You look sad. I hope you feel better soon." There was no name. I closed the book and held it in my lap. My hands were shaking. I didn't know how to feel. Someone had seen me. Someone noticed. I wanted to cry, but I held it in. That night, I brought the book home. I read it again and again. The words were kind. They made me feel warm inside. I wasn't invisible. Not completely. The next day, I brought a pencil with me. I wrote a short answer on the last page. "Thank you. I'm not okay, but your words helped." I left the book on the same table and waited. I came back every day for a week, but the book didn't move. Then one day, it was gone. I felt lost again. I had hoped for more, but still, something had changed. A small part of me woke up. I began to walk around the city again. I looked up at the buildings. I watched the people. I tried to feel something. Even sadness felt better than nothing. Weeks passed. The pain didn't leave, but it became lighter. I started to write in my own notebook. I wrote small things. What I saw, what I felt, what I remembered. It helped. I didn't feel so full inside. I began to notice little things again. A bird on the window, a smile from the librarian, the sound of rain on the roof. I was still alone, but not in the same way. I was starting to connect again, not with people yet, but with life. And maybe that was the first step. Before I share the rest of my story, I need to know, where are you listening from? Knowing someone hears me, understands me, gives me strength. One morning I woke up before my alarm. The sky outside was still dark. I sat on the edge of my bed and listened. The building was quiet. Even the birds were silent. My hands felt cold. My chest felt heavy. But for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel empty. I boiled water and made tea. The cup warmed my fingers. I looked at the notebook on my desk. I had filled many pages now. They were full of thoughts, memories, small things I noticed. I didn't write to share. I wrote to survive. It gave shape to my days. I took the train again, but I didn't go straight to the library. I walked around the city center first. The air was crisp and the streets were busy. People moved in groups, talking and laughing. I still felt like an outsider, but I stayed longer this time. I sat on a bench and watched a woman feed birds with her child. I saw a man helping his elderly mother down the stairs. I noticed how people touched, smiled, and moved together. It reminded me of the world I had left behind. At the library, I chose a new seat near the window. It was warmer there. A young woman sat 2 tables away. She looked tired, like she had been up all night. I could feel her sadness from across the room. I wondered what her story was. I didn't speak to her, but I wrote about her in my notebook later. I imagined her life. I imagined her pain. Somehow, it helped me understand my own. In the next few days, I began to change my routine. I walked new streets. I visited free museums. I sat in quiet parks. I didn't spend money, but I collected moments. I saw a street artist painting in the rain. I watched a couple dance without music near the river. I smiled when a child offered me a flower made from paper. These were small things, but they felt like pieces of light in a dark place. One afternoon, I walked past a small building with a sign that said Community Center. I had seen it before but never gone inside. That day, I did. The room was simple. A few chairs, a table with tea, and some people talking in soft voices. A woman greeted me. Her voice was calm and kind. She told me there were support meetings for people going through hard times. She said I could stay or come back later. I nodded and thanked her. I didn't sit down. Not yet. But I left with a flyer in my pocket. At home, I read the flyer again and again. It listed times, topics, and contact names. I didn't call anyone. But something inside me said, maybe I could try. I wasn't ready to speak, but I wanted to listen. That felt like a start. The next week, I returned. I sat near the back of the room. No one stared. No one pushed me to talk. People shared their stories, stories of loss, illness, fear, and loneliness. I listened. I cried quietly. Their words opened something in me. I saw that I wasn't alone in my sadness. Pain was everywhere, but so was hope. After the meeting, I didn't rush out. I stood near the tea table and poured myself a cup. My hands were shaking. A man beside me said the tea was always too weak. I smiled. It was the first smile I had shared with a stranger in a long time. I didn't answer, but he didn't seem to mind. I kept going back. I listened more. I started to write about the stories I heard. I changed the names, but I kept the feelings. Writing helped me carry the pain. I felt like I had found something new. A quiet place where people understood without asking too many questions. One evening after the meeting, I walked to the river. The water was high. The lights from the bridge reflected on the surface. I stood there for a long time. I thought about Simon, about my job, about all the things I had lost. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt tired, but peaceful. I remembered the small book someone left at the library. I still didn't know who wrote in it, but it had changed me. It had reminded me that kindness still existed, that someone had noticed me when I thought I was invisible, that memory stayed with me like a small, warm light. As winter passed, I began to feel stronger. I wasn't happy, not really, but I didn't wake up with the same weight on my chest. I started doing small jobs at the community center, helping with chairs, cleaning, making tea. It wasn't much, but it gave me purpose. It gave me structure. One day, the center needed someone to help with writing a small newsletter. I offered. My hands shook when I said it, but I did. They gave me a laptop and a short list of events to write about. I wrote simply and clearly. When they printed the newsletter, I saw my words in black and white. It felt good. I had made something. I had done something useful. The next month, I helped again. I started talking more with the people there. Not deep conversations, but small, real ones. How was your day? Did you sleep well? Want to share a cup of tea? These questions felt new again, like forgotten music. One morning, as I walked to the center, I saw a woman sitting on the steps. She looked lost. Her hands were in her lap. Her eyes were full of something I recognized. Fear, sadness, maybe both. I didn't know her, but I sat beside her. We didn't speak. I just sat there. After a few minutes, she stood up and walked in. I stayed outside a little longer, then followed. That night, I wrote in my notebook, "Today I sat with someone who reminded me of myself." I hope it helped. As spring came, the city changed. The air smelled different. Flowers appeared along the sidewalks. People smiled more. I walked longer, stood straighter, and even laughed a little. I was still healing, but I was healing. One day, while clearing old books at the center, I saw a notebook that looked familiar. I opened it and froze. It was the one from the library, the one with the kind words. My heart jumped. I turned the pages. My message was still there, and under it, someone had added more. "You are not alone. Keep writing. You're stronger than you think." I didn't know how the book got there. I didn't need to. I smiled and held it close. I had found it again. Or maybe it had found me. In the weeks that followed, I carried the small notebook with me everywhere. It reminded me that someone had seen me during a time when I believed I was invisible. I didn't know who they were, but their words stayed with me. I began to believe in small signs, a quiet smile, a soft voice, a person sitting beside you in silence. These things were not loud, but they were powerful. At the community center, I continued to help. I arrived early and left late. I wiped tables, cleaned chairs, and made tea. I wrote short articles for the newsletter, and sometimes I added a few kind words at the end. Nothing big, just thoughts about hope, about not giving up, about the beauty of trying again. People started to recognize my writing. A woman said she always saved the newsletter because the words made her feel calm. That meant something to me. I had been so silent for so long. Now, my words were helping others feel less alone. One Thursday, a new face appeared at the support group. A girl who looked about 20 sat in the corner. Her hands were shaking, and her eyes looked red. She didn't speak. But I saw something in her that reminded me of myself months ago. I didn't go to her that day. I waited. The next week, she came back. I sat beside her without saying a word. She didn't move away. That was enough. Over time, she began to talk. Her voice was soft, but it held pain. She had lost her brother. She had no one in the city. She said every morning felt too long, and every night felt too dark. I understood those words. I had lived them too. I didn't give her advice. I listened. I nodded. I was there. That was all she needed. After one meeting, she handed me a folded paper. Inside, there was a simple sentence. "You make the room feel safe." I didn't cry then, but when I got home, I did. Not from sadness, from something else. Maybe it was gratitude. Maybe it was the feeling of being part of the world again. The seasons changed once more. Summer arrived with heat and noise. The city became bright. Children played outside. Cafes were full again. I still took the train sometimes, but now I had places to go. I was no longer watching life from the side. I was walking in it. One morning, the woman who ran the community center asked me if I wanted to join their small team. She said they needed someone to help with communication. Writing newsletters, managing emails, helping organize events. She said she had noticed my work. I was surprised. I had stopped expecting good things. I said yes. The job was part-time, but it gave me structure and confidence. I bought a second-hand laptop. I worked in the quiet office at the back of the center. I made lists, answered emails, and wrote with care. I felt useful again. I felt seen. That same month, I found an affordable studio apartment not far from the center. It was small but clean. It had a window that looked out onto a park. I painted one wall soft blue. I bought a plant and gave it a name. I didn't feel rich, but I felt stable. I was building something new. Slowly, gently. One Sunday, I saw Simon. He was walking on the other side of the street, holding hands with someone. He looked different, lighter. He didn't see me. I stood still for a moment. Then I turned and walked away. My heart didn't break this time. It didn't even hurt. I didn't want his life back. I didn't want the past. I wanted the quiet joy of my own path. That night, I wrote in my notebook, I am no longer waiting to be saved. I am learning to save myself. More time passed. I joined a writing group at the local library. We met twice a month and shared short stories. I didn't write about pain anymore. I wrote about people, real people who felt lonely, scared, or hopeful. My stories were quiet, like me. But people listened. They asked questions. They smiled. Some even cried. One man said, "Your stories sound like home." That stayed with me. I often thought about the person who left the first message in the notebook. I never found out who it was, but I believed that they were out there, somewhere, still offering small kindnesses to people who needed them. That idea gave me strength. I wanted to be like that too. So I began a project at the center. I called it the Kindness Table. We placed a notebook on a small table with pens and a sign. Write something kind. Someone needs it. People were shy at first, but slowly messages appeared. You're not alone. This pain will pass. You matter. I saw people read them and smile, sometimes cry. One woman hugged the notebook like it was a friend. I knew that feeling well. By the end of the year, the notebook was full. We started another and another. The table became a small symbol of quiet love. It reminded people that words could touch hearts, even when they came from strangers. My life was not perfect. I still had hard days. I still felt heavy sometimes, but I wasn't hiding anymore. I walked with my head up. I listened when people spoke. I looked at faces, not just shoes. I laughed more. I cried less. And when I did cry, it wasn't in silence or shame. It was part of healing. One cold morning, I stood on the same train platform where this story began. The sky was gray again. The wind was sharp. But I wasn't the same woman. I was stronger, softer, wiser. I had been broken, but I wasn't empty. I had lost much, but I had also found something real. As the train arrived, I pulled out my notebook and wrote, "Nobody noticed my tears, but someone noticed me." And that changed everything.